All right. Thank you, everyone, for being here for the January 4th, 2022 Maury County School Board meeting. At this time, we'll call the roll. Technically, Mr. Howell, that falls in your lap since Ms. Kinser's not here. Yeah, here, this might actually make it easier if you want.
Oh, I was going to pull it. All right, Kristen Parker.
Okay.
Ms. Kinser's absent. Mr. Harlan's absent. Mr. Fulbright.
Here.
David Moore. Present. Marlena Irvin. Will Sims. Here. Austin Hooper.
Here.
Chad House present. Wayne Lindsay. Here. And Tommy Dudley.
We have 7, so I believe we have a quorum. At this time, we'll rise. We'll have our pledge. Was going to be presented by Marvin Wright Elementary, but they have been potentially exposed to COVID, so they're not going to be joining us tonight. But let's rise and we'll say the pledge and have a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. You can be seated. Do want to point out that the artwork that's in front of us was also presented by Marvin Wright Elementary, and we thank them for their participation in tonight's meeting. Moving on to the agenda for tonight. Before I take a motion to adopt the agenda, I will go ahead and say, even though we can do this at any time, I'm going to be pulling off Budget Amendment 11067 from the consent items so that we can discuss that a little bit separately. Is there any other alterations to the agenda that we need to make at this time? Ms. Parker.
Can you also pull off the request to increase starting pay for classroom coordinators? There wasn't anything attached to that, so I'm not sure what the consent, what the amount is.
Yes, correct. All right, we'll take that off too. 11067.
It's already under new business as well.
So okay, see, I don't have that.
With the line item that was discussed at the work session, to instead of fund balance, I think it was textbooks was the line item that we were told to take it from. So we amended that one, and it's under new business.
Yes. Okay. Let me just scan back through here because I don't have the second page in front of me. Okay. Okay, so that is different. That item, number 19, is what you referenced, Ms. Parker? Is that the one you referenced, number 19 under consent? Okay. Is that different than item 7.3 under new business? It is, isn't it? Okay, thank you.
It probably still needs to go under new business instead of just being under consent, though.
Okay.
I just...
Oh, okay, okay. Thank you. Okay, thank you. All right. With those additions to the agenda, are we good? I'll accept a motion to approve. Have a motion from Mr. Hooper, second from Ms. Parker. And of course, I did that when Ms. Shirley was not there to type it in, so we'll wait on her, give her a chance. Don't run back. Just be careful. Headed back. We'll give you some time. Okay, that has passed unanimously, so we have us an agenda for the evening. Moving on to number 3, recognitions and announcements. Turn that over to Mr. Hickman.
Thank you. Board, I'd like to start off by presenting this year we have selected the Murray County Public Schools Principal of the Year, and I'd like to introduce you guys to Dr. Ryan Jackson. He was selected and voted on by his peers, and we're very happy to have him to be our candidate for the state and regional Principal of the Year too. So, and he's in the back of the room, so I'd like to give him a big hand and congratulations from us. And I know he will represent us well. Next, I'd like to move on to our Murray Smiles Award. As you know, we, a couple of months ago, started to have where teachers and parents and students could all nominate a teacher or a student or anyone in the school system for just the great work they're doing. And this month, I'm very pleased to recognize these individuals. I'd like to, and if you are here, if you could come up front, I would appreciate it. And first of all get my certificates out.
They're right there behind your computer.
I knew I had them out. We'll start with Sean Gaddis, who is a student at Mount Pleasant High School. Sean is working on a tool he designed that will allow someone who may not have the strength to open a plastic bottle the ability to do so. He is 3D printing his prototype to test and see what changes he may need to make before creating multiple tools. And Sean was nominated by Mr. Michael Mitchell. So great job, Sean. If you'll step here, I'll give you a certificate as soon as we get the rest of them up here. It's right here.
Is that it right there in your hand?
Oh.
let me see. I'm just nosy. I want to see it. Okay, here, wait a minute.
I brought a normal soda bottle cap and 2 prototypes.
Nice.
And there's just a soda bottle cap. It barely works since there's a teeth,
Yeah, that's still pretty cool.
but it is at least a proof of concept.
Awesome. Very creative. Thank you very much for sharing that with us.
Pass that one around if you want.
Okay, thank you.
Hopefully we'll see him on, what's that, Shark Tank? Yeah. All right, the next person I would like to recognize is Canvas Phelps. She is, Canvas here? Hey, Canvas is a student at Columbia Central High School. Canvas's capstone project supports body positivity by her offering free portraits to the community. Sitters were asked to hold up a sign like "I am awesome," "I am beautiful," or make their own positive sign. We can't wait to see the final project. Have you got almost done with it, or how long will it go? Oh, wow. Well, congratulations and great job. And she was nominated by Michael Mitchell also. The next person I would like to recognize is Seth Woodard, teacher at Mount Pleasant High School. Is Seth here tonight? Well, Mr. Woodard is the Mount Pleasant High School Project Lead the Way teacher. He recently hosted an in-school Battle of the Bots competition, and his students rose to the occasion, and the atmosphere was like a playoff sporting event. All students were fully engaged for the entire class period, and there was genuine excitement about the team would go home with the bragging rights. So great job to Mr. Woodard. Yep. All right. And our next people that we would like to recognize is Coach April Mobbs and her cheer team. Her Miss Mobbs and her Mount Pleasant High School cheer team were on a quest for nationals and took one step closer when they claimed fourth in TSSA state competition after receiving 0 deductions for their routine. She and her team work tirelessly every week to continue to push towards their goal of going to nationals at Disney. We are so grateful to have Coach Mobbs, who has a championship mindset at Mount Pleasant. And Coach Mobbs, do you want to talk about what all you guys got to do and did? And introduce your team, too, as well.
Turn the microphone on. Yeah, they're good.
Okay. The ones that are here with me tonight are Savannah Buchanan, Lexi Felty, Gracie Felty, Cadence Barnett, Taisha Tate, Colby Fritz, Anna Grace Grooms, Savannah Baldwin, Mia Lindsay, and Briley Norman. These are some of my girls. I have 15 total, but we have actually received our bid to nationals. We went and competed again, got a 4th place finish, and got our bid to nationals with the highest score that we have gotten all year. Mount Pleasant has taken a couple years off from competing, so they come back this year. They were ready day one. This group was ready to compete again. They had a goal of getting to nationals, and that's where we're headed in February. So I'm very proud of them. We had a month. We got our bid on November 20th, and our fees were due January 3rd. So we had a month to raise about $16,000, and we have done that. So I'm proud of these girls, continue to work hard. Our community for standing behind us as well. So now we go to nationals and get those white jackets.
There you go. Great job. And I do have one more, but they are already up here, so I will give them theirs. But we had a board member who was on our Murray Smiles, and that was our own Miss Irvin. All right. And she was nominated because, quote, she is an amazing school board member, and she was nominated by Callie Irvin. So I will present her with her certificate. One more. Thank you
all very much. I think this shows a lot of what we have as far as creativity, innovation, dedication, and community support. So thank you all very much for being a part of that and for being a part of our system. Thank you.
All right, and thank you. And you guys, you don't have to stay for this whole meeting if you don't want to.
But if you'd like to and cheer us on, we're
we could have our own cheering squad over here. That's right. So thank you, guys. I do have one other group of students and teachers that I would like to recognize here. A big congratulations to our Spring Hill High School FFA Swine Show team for their outstanding placement at the South Central Swine Show in Shelbyville. They won many awards and recognitions, and if I could have those folks to come up front, and their teachers are Mr. Gwen Evans and Mr. Josh Norman. And Mr. Norman, would you like to tell us what all you guys did and some of the medals you won?
I guess there we go. So this is 4 of our 7 students that we have that are showing hogs this year. It's the first year we've done this. Kind of sprung it on them and said, hey, if anybody's interested in showing pigs in January, we've got the state FFA and 4-H show. We'll need to be getting pigs next month. And this was at the beginning of school. And 7 of them said, yeah, we're interested. And so next thing we know, we have taken the greenhouse tables and turned them sideways and used our expanded steel greenhouse tables and created pig pens in the greenhouse there at Spring Hill. And United Farm and Home Co-op donated some hog panels and T-posts, and we've actually got a pretty good setup working there in the greenhouse. It's kind of odd when you walk in and you're like, hey, it's a greenhouse. And then you're like, there's a 250-pound hog standing there. But like I said, we have our regional and state show. We actually will leave next Wednesday. We'll show regionals on Wednesday afternoon and Thursday, and then Thursday, Friday, and Saturday they will show for the state show. We have crossbred gilts. We have a registered Barra, a registered gilt. No, 2 registered gilts, because Jackson's. So we tried to break it up when we were finding their show pigs so that they wouldn't be competing against each other. Minimum weight is 230 pounds, and as of right now, all but one, I think, is met minimum weight. Max weight is 305 pounds. So we're at the point now we're pushing trying to get them ideals 275, 280. So we will be hitting that mark with several of them. But state show is showmanship, so that is where the student themselves is judged on how well they're able to work with their animal and show their animal to the judge. It is more based off of them as their animal. Then you move into your market classes or your guilt classes, and that is where the judge is actually going to be evaluating the animal itself. Another aspect of it is the general knowledge Skill-A-Thon. So they'll have a general knowledge test that can be anything from breeds to ear notches to equipment to medication labels. So we actually have the Skill-A-Thon kit, and they've been studying that as well. But they put in a lot of time. The animals have to be fed twice a day, every day. They've all worked on weekends to come up and feed. The last 2 weeks over Christmas break, we have had a schedule and everything where everybody's come up and fed and watered and everything like that. Tomorrow's going to be a fun day. We got to sort of clean everything back up after a 2 week just feeding. So it's a little bit of a mess, but we'll get that cleaned up. But they've done very good. It's all of their first year of show. So between having never shown anything before to where they're at now, they've really stepped up and put in the effort and have done very good. So hopefully next week we'll be doing well as can be.
Anybody?
Thank you, Nick. Thank you.
And bring home that steak.
Bring home the bacon.
Yeah, about
Couldn't
3
pass
weeks.
that one up.
I'll have to say my daughter, she showed pigs, hogs, and her best day was when they took it off to make it bacon.
Yep. It's
She
about
lo-
like buying a boat. The happiest day is the day you get it, and the second happiest is the day you sell it.
Yeah.
The way she was.
Well, and I'll say too, as someone whose wife works at Farm Bureau, I can tell you that Murray County is definitely built on agriculture, and you guys are doing us proud, keeping that tradition alive, and keeping our name in the forefront. So thank you for all you're doing. Thank you for your work,
Yeah.
and Mr. Evans, thank you too if you're still here. All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I actually have two folks signed up. One signed up on the sheet in the back on a topic on the agenda, and I had communication with someone over the last month who had signed up to speak tonight, but didn't make it on under public delegation, but I went ahead and approved it through my email exchange with them. So at this time, I will ask Jenny Wolflin if you would come up and share about 3 or 5 minutes. State your name, where you're from, and you can have the floor after that.
Okay. Hi, my name is Jenny Wolflin. I'm from Columbia. I am the mother of a freshman at Central High School. I came here tonight to discuss the impact that the lack of teachers and staff is having on my son, as well as several other students' education. I have been voicing my concerns since August, and I am extremely disappointed in the lack of education and viable solutions for the first half of the school year. These students have been set up to struggle or fail. My son is missing his Algebra 1 teacher, and Elevate has been unsuccessful due to broken equipment and no classroom coordinators. In 18 weeks, these students have had one algebra class. And I brought the paper. This is all he's done in algebra this year. All students should have teachers, staff, and materials needed for their classes. And I just want to know what you're going to do to hire and retain teachers, and how you're going to do a more efficient job moving forward, and what are some actions you are going to take today to set these students up for success. One of the ideas I had was tutoring during school hours to make up for the lack of education. I believe there should be emergency board meetings in the future if new solutions are needed. and that we can't go another day without teachers and classroom coordinators. Can we please raise the bar in Murray County, because this is unacceptable?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I know that's a topic that we will be discussing a little bit later on, so thank you for sharing that. Ms. Harrington, I'll let you come on up.
Hi, my name is Whitney Harrington, and would you like my address as well? Okay.
Nah, go ahead.
I just want to say that I am an art teacher here in Murray County, and I have been a teacher for 8 years. I am currently at Mount Pleasant High School under Dr. Jackson, and he is awesome and definitely deserves Principal of the Year. He's a really great principal. I would just like to say thank you from the art teachers. And when I say art teachers, I'm specifically talking about the visual art teachers. For the funding that you guys are considering giving us once again. It's very unfortunate that we've had to come to you the last 3 years in a row and basically beg for you to give us money, especially when you've made it clear to central office that this should be in the budget. I personally have been asking about funding since August this year, only to find out at the end of this semester that it was cut from the budget. And I will be very honest with you, I am very nervous talking about this right now. But I just want everyone to know the truth, that my kids walked in the door on August 1st and I had no money. How am I supposed to teach my students when I have nothing to teach them with? I don't think that is very fair, and it is the same situation that this poor woman is having along with her kid missing a teacher. I will also say that I did inherit a classroom from an 18-year teacher, and it was full of a lot of things, so I did start out with supplies. But those are quickly going away, and once they are used up, they are used up. But that doesn't go for just me, that goes for everyone. I would also like to ask that when we are speaking about art, that we are a little more mindful about what we are saying, because it leaves room for interpretation for what art actually is. So some people think that when you say the word art, that it could mean all fine arts, or it could mean it could go to any art. That is simply not the case. When we are speaking of visual art, we need to make sure that we say visual art. When we are talking about performing art, we need to make sure that we say band or we say theater, because that will definitely cut down on miscommunications between us and you and central office. I would also ask that you please consider us having a fine arts coordinator within central office, someone that is specific for fine arts, so that we can be brought up as important as some of the other content areas, such as like physical education and special, like Lisa Ventura. I've heard nothing but great things about her. She's an advocate for her content and her teachers. We need that as well. It is only fair. I would also say that the $48,000 that is on this agenda tonight has been a random number that was thrown out 3 years ago with Dr. Mark Zach, and if you don't know where that came from, you can ask me, because it was probably my fault where that number came from. And it doesn't even scratch the surface of what our needs actually are. So I'm asking that you please consider having a meeting, a special called meeting, a board meeting, whatever it is, with all fine arts teachers, so we can actually discuss our needs across the county. Murray County spends almost $10,000 per student. And how is it fair that I'm supposed to educate my art students with $3 a kid? Please tell me. Even if I had kids bring in their own materials for my class, it would be more than $3. So I don't mean to come up here and be so negative, and I'm very thankful for the opportunity to speak in front of you. And as you can tell, I'm very nervous to say these things. But I ask you to please either, one, pull this item so that it can be further discussed, so that we can make sure that it goes where it's supposed to go and not be split among other fine arts programs. And two, please let us have an opportunity to talk so that fine arts across the board can be budgeted and actually get what we need to be successful across the district. So, thank you.
Thank you very much for bringing that up. And this is something that we'll take up under our new business with Budget Amendment 11067. All right.
Mr. Fulbright?
Yes.
Sorry.
Ms. Parker.
I just wanted to ask Ms. Harrington, I hate to put you on the spot about this, but I know that you're running up against not having any supplies. Would when this comes up for discussion, would you like for us to consider 48,000 as like a first wave and then have a further discussion, or would you rather us take it to further discussion at the work session to really get an idea of what that number
Honestly,
is?
I am not sure. I can't say on behalf of everyone else. I will say that my principal and also Kids on Stage art director were just in this room, and they did not stay long enough to give any kind of feedback on this. I would say that it would definitely be a question to ask them as well. So I'm just a peon teacher. I have no idea. I just want my kids to get what they need to be successful, and $3 a student is not cutting it, or zero at this point.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, I can't give you a better answer.
I appreciate that. I'm sorry to put you on the spot about it. I just wanted to make sure that if we could address your needs and not delay it, we could.
Okay, thank you. And I have plenty of questions that just looking through some of this information have come up. So we'll tackle that when the time comes. Thank you very much, all those that shared tonight. Anything under staff reporting? Okay. Okay.
First of all, Ms. Gerard couldn't make it tonight, so she gave me, one of the things that was asked for at last meeting was kind of an update on the staffing report, and I did have this pulled up. That was asked for us to bring back. Oh gosh, I apologize. Well, she was asked to bring back a staff reporting for positions that were out, that were still, and I do apologize, I had this pulled up, I hope I didn't delete it. While I'm doing that is, I will have to email that to you because I cannot find it now. I apologize, so I'll email to it.
Okay, thank you. Anything else before we move on to financials? Consent items, actually. We have before us consent. We have 2 of them that we've removed. Any further discussion on the consent items? Have a motion to approve from Mr. Moore, seconded by Mr. Sims. Mine's a yes, but somehow I can't find where I'm supposed to be doing it. I think I left the meeting. All right, that passes unanimously. Moving on to new business. Let's get into the art funds first. This was something that came before us at the work session.
We were told to not take it out of fund balance. I think the discussion ended up to take it out of another line item out of the operating funds, and we ended up, the line item that was set at the work session was textbooks. So the amendment that's in front of you is taking the 48,000 out of instead of fund balance, out of textbooks. Something that I did want to, and it's in the conversation that we've already had going on, the first budget amendment that we did was in 2019. That's the year that we started doing the school financials. And at that time, we usually get our guidance on, I'm not sure who came up with the number 48,000, but that's what was done in 2019. And what we were given at that time was 6,000 for high schools, 5,000 for unit schools, 2,000 for middle schools, and 1,000 for elementary. Again, not sure what the concept was behind it or whatever, but that's what was given to us. So that's what was allocated in 1920 for each school. We were, again, like the arts teacher said, it is specifically visual arts only, and when we have received these funds, or once the budget amendment gets approved and signed, we literally write checks to each school and send them to the bookkeeper. So the funds are not kept at the central office to open, or not central office, I guess I'm trying to say, not in finance. They're actually sent to the bookkeeper at each school so they can go ahead and distribute it to the art teachers at each school, and they get to use it. Now, if they do not use any funds, they are required by policy to return any unused district funds back to our office June the 1st. So that way we can close the books and put these funds back in fund balance for the schools. Something else that we did last year, so the first year, like I said, there were flat amounts. Not sure what the logic behind it was, but that's what we presented. That's what was given to us, and that's what we presented to the board, flat amounts for each school depending on the amount of, depending on high school, middle school, elementary. The second year, which was 2021, Mr. Gaines and I worked together, and I told him this is what I was given. I'm not sure, maybe it should be broken down a different way where it's more equitable. And so Mr. Gaines took them out, $48,000 again, and split it based on enrollment. So we took $48,000 and split it by the number of kids enrolled throughout the schools, and then that's how we did it last year and this year. $48,000, I'm not sure, and I know the teacher brought that up, and so I wanted to, we don't know who came up with the original 48, and maybe that was guidance that was given right before we took over finance and to the previous administration and said, okay, $48,000 is the amount we're going to go through, but for the last 3 years, that is the amount that we've done since 1920. So here we are in 2021, 22, and we're still doing the same amount, and again, it's done by enrollment now, and depending on what the enrollment is at each location, that's how much each school gets. And they are funds that go directly to the bookkeeper. We do not hold them anywhere. The schools receive their checks. They're pretty much going to get these checks either at the end of this week or next week as soon as you all approve these.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board on this? I have one regarding a email I received this afternoon. It's a screenshot of a slide, looks like from a PowerPoint presentation. $48,000 has been approved by the school board to be voted on at the next meeting. The money will be divided per pupil at each school. Principals are being instructed to divide the money evenly among arts teachers. Does that mean arts teachers within each school? Fine art, visual art, performing art? Or, I said those wrong, but whatever.
I think I can answer that.
Okay.
All right, so we did have a professional development today for our arts, and it was verbally communicated that that $48,000 would be distributed among the arts programs at each school. We thought that that covered the umbrella to include general music and all of that. Of course, now we understand now that that is just for visual arts. So it was just verbally communicated as part of a meeting, but that can be rectified and taken care of. So.
Okay, how can that be rectified and taken care of before I vote on this?
It would only go to teachers at elementary. There would be art teachers. At middle and high school, there would be those teachers that teach art. At high school, it would be, of course, your visual art teachers or your AP arts. It would only go to those teachers' accounts.
Okay, but here's my concern. I voted on numerous things over the last year that didn't get spent the way that I thought they were going to get spent, and then got reallocated in a way that I didn't think they should have been reallocated. So I don't feel comfortable voting on anything that doesn't specify and clarify something that was said today and tonight is being changed verbally, unless we need to just add an amendment to this budget amendment to specify that this is for visual art supplies. I did not go back and listen to the work session from December, but for the last 3 years, I have never heard of any other of the arts programs being considered in this $48,000. It has always been art supplies for the visual arts programs. So that's where my confusion and a little bit of, here we go again, comes into mind. So I'll take other board members' input on this before I say much else. Mr. Moore.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Fulbright. That would, when we talked about this at the work session, I know, and I think Ms. Parker brought this up about the whole is this immediate need? My fear had always been that if, not that I want to withhold money for right now, but I'm afraid if we start just doing something, I want to do it right. I don't want to do it right the first time. And that was the reason I think at the last work session that I had asked to try to get staff to put together a workable number, because obviously, $3 and some change per student doesn't seem realistic to create art supplies for teachers that have to do that. And I don't know how much progress has been made on that. It would have been my preference, without getting into too much in the weeds tonight at a voting meeting, I would have been my preference to push this off to the next work session, unless the art teachers can tell me that like right now we need this money to get something done for this semester. Otherwise, I'd really rather spend some time doing this right, figuring out how we can never bring this up as some kind of amendment again, and this actually gets worked into what we budget for every year, just like we've asked for textbooks and anything else to operate a class. So, and Mr. Fulbright, I actually share some of your concerns to make sure that this goes to the correct place. Since I've been on the board, the board has made it very clear that we want to, we took concerted efforts to put arts back into all of our schools. And then now we're struggling to get it funded for the very clear board direction that has continued for the last 7 years since I've been here, that we definitely want arts in all of our schools. And it's a shame that we're not really funding it, or we're funding it as an afterthought, an underfunded afterthought, to put it there. So I still have concerns. I would prefer, unless these teachers need this money like right now to get this done, to do a better job of getting a real number and find out what that looks like. I know there's still additional money in the textbook line item that could go towards this, because I still firmly believe these are the equivalent of textbooks for the materials for these classes to be taught. So I would prefer this to get deferred to our next work session if possible.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Howe.
So to say it's $3.90 per pupil, I mean, if this is for fine arts, I know at Culleoka we don't have 950 students in a fine arts program. So for those students in fine arts, it would really be more than $3.90 per pupil. Just want to point that out. Now, however, is 48,000 the number we want to be with? I don't know. I don't know the needs. We've never been told exactly what the needs are. We've always just been allocating, here's 48,000, here's 48,000, here's 48,000. So, I mean, I would like to know more about where this is going and how we're going to use it and what it's going to be used for and what the needs are. Because if the needs are 100,000, or I'm sure there are more, because there's always more needs than money, I'd like to know that. We're not in a position where we actually have money for a change. So I would rather have one or the other. I mean, we don't need to have needs and money. And right now we have needs and money. So I don't know we need to figure out what we're going to do with this and move forward. I guess my other concern is, so right now we are starting a new semester and there's zero money for these students moving forward from right now on. So in our true board fashion, we can sit here and discuss and talk about this all day long, and we can get it right the first time, or we can go ahead tonight and get this ball rolling and started so that our students in classrooms right now actually have money to go a semester instead of another month or another 2 months, and it gets approved. Well, that's halfway through the semester with no need. I don't have a problem discussing this later on, but tonight I think we need to approve this, move forward. We can always add to it. So that would be my recommendation, is we move forward from here and add, and not one and done. We're not done with this. I'd like to bring this back up to where we could actually discuss this clear to find out what our needs are and fund those needs as well.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sims.
That was right where I was going. I don't disagree with Mr. Moore or whoever was talking about it more. I would hope that our budget for next year is already being looked at and talked about. So I would be on board with, let's go ahead and get some supplies in the students' and teachers' hands tonight, and then start the discussion maybe the next board meeting about what their true needs are, and go forward from there.
Okay. Mr. Lindsay.
I agree with Mr. Sims and Mr. Howe both. Without doubt, needs are more than $48,000. So let's get them started. But I would like to see a plan brought back, an idea that here's what we need, here's why we need it, instead of pulling some arbitrary number out of the air that it appears happened 3 years ago, and then that same number got regurgitated last year, and then we regurgitated it again just because that's what we do. It really makes zero sense. But I would like to go ahead so they're not sitting there with nothing. We give them something, but come back with a plan that actually makes sense. That maybe we look at the number of, we figure out what that number per pupil is that it's going to take to actually educate those kids, and then let's look at the number of kids in the art program, in the arts program, rather than just pulling out the total enrollment number. But I would just like to see a plan for that rather than let's just, and we can throw 20,000 more at it, we can throw 100,000 at it, we can throw 400,000 at it, but if we don't know what we're doing with it, it makes zero sense.
Okay, thank you. What I'm hearing is actually what I was getting ready to say too, so I want to jump in and sound smart also. I hear us taking this to a vote tonight for the 48,000 and a desire from this board to the staff to get with the arts teachers, fine arts, performing arts, visual, everybody, to sit down and create a realistic budget. We've done that for a lot of the other programs. Let's do it for art, and let's do a number that actually makes sense and is workable. Well, I agree with everybody up here. 48,000 is going to scratch the surface of the needs. They've probably close to put 48,000 in themselves probably over the years, trying to keep their classrooms afloat. So I think let's take this to a vote tonight, and I will, like I said, task the staff with getting with the teachers to put a realistic budget together. And I also want there to be some sort of, whether it's just said or whatever, that this is going to art supplies, not visual art supplies. Thank you. I'm getting my terms all wonky tonight. Visual art supplies. The others we can deal with when budget time comes up. Mr. Moore.
I'd just like to make a motion to approve Budget Amendment 11067 to fund visual arts and visual art supplies.
Have a motion from Mr. Moore, second from Mr. Howe. Any further discussions?
I just wanted to add one thing real quick.
Yes.
So I think the clarification for us was maybe when we did the original budget amendment, the actual document that I have from 1920, it specifically stated, and I was trying to find which meeting it was presented at, and we do have documentation at the office. Whenever I send you a budget amendment to sign, it's dated, which again, I don't think you were the board chair at that time, but either way, I would have the date of the meeting on that document that would show us, and the attachment in there did say visual arts. So in our minds, whenever we have communicated with the bookkeepers, when our office has sent these out, they have strictly gone to art teachers only. Now, I do remember whenever we have discussed this, when we've discussed other items, they've been talked about as performing arts or music. Okay. And I know we have funded music in the past as well, but some of the music funding was done during adoptions with the books during budget season as well. So I have some documentation on it too, but I think that's where our wording just says art, not visual or performing, because performing arts was discussed as performing, but we have never actually funded performing arts on its own because we have no codes for it. Okay. Arts itself, just visual arts, has been $278, and then, like I said, music has been funded through book adoptions and other items.
And that's why I'm not getting too bent out of shape about the wording on this, because I do believe that our intention is very clear.
Visual arts.
However, when I'm sitting here reading something that says something totally different, I want to make sure that if I vote yes on this, that something totally different is not what's going to happen.
In the first budget amendment, the documentation that was attached said visual, and what we'll do is just from here on out, since there is a segregation, because honestly I don't know a lot about arts, I'm in numbers, so I did really not even think that segregation, that there's 3 different sections that this could break down into, so we'll kind of keep an eye on it too. But I went back and looked, and the first one said visual arts.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that we're not losing our intent. All right. I believe we're ready to vote. Yeah, we just approved, the budget's to, the motion is to approve the budget amendment. Yes, and I don't know if visual arts, Okay, that's fine. I'm good. Okay. All right, looks like that was passed unanimously. And as I will reiterate again, this is the start of the process of getting this funding mechanism right. I want to ask just a couple other questions, not dealing with this subject, but with another subject similar, I guess. When, Mr. Ritchie, this is probably going to fall into your wheelhouse here. When the band monies were divvied out between the three schools, was there any clarification that all that money went to the band programs and didn't get split up between the other three art programs?
You're talking about the original...
The money that was approved, that went a pot to Central's band, a pot to Spring Hill's band, and a pot to Mount Pleasant's band.
What had been communicated to the principals was it was for their music programs that also included band. I left it up to the principals to determine how they divvied it up, and they based it on the members that were in their programs.
Would it be possible for them to have, because we're having a discussion on what is art, would a principal be willing, or be within their purview to ask it to be split between art, band, and theater?
For this...
For the roughly $7,000 that was given to some of the schools.
Were they asked to do that?
Were they told they could or could not?
They were, at the time, they were told that they could.
So that $7,000, say, went to one of the high schools, could be given to the theater department instead of the band, a portion of it.
Not part of that. That was delegated toward music programs, not performing arts.
Okay. Could we verify and just double check with the principals that all that money is going to band and music programs?
Yeah. Do you want me to forward the emails too that I sent to the principals?
Yes, please.
Okay, I can do that.
And I would like to see their responses to the emails too.
Okay, roger that.
And another thing, I'm not going to bring it up tonight for us to talk about, but one thing I'd like you to look into is money for the Spring Hill theater department that didn't have some money, seems like, for something they were getting ready to spend it on that had been allocated.
Yes, I have an email for that too. Do you like me to
Please
send
forward
that
that to me as well.
Sure
Thank
will.
you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Instructional low bid. Or wait, was there anything under, didn't we pull something else out to talk about under new business? Yes, we did. Ms. Parker, your, the budget amendment for yours, is that coming up somewhere else?
It's classroom coordinators. It's related to Elevate, which is 7.
Okay, then let's just take it up with that then. Instructional low bids purchases, anything under those, Mr. Gaines?
No, sir. The addition, it was added on as new business, so
Okay.
it's down there.
All right, school calendar.
You have the option that we had a discussion on the calendar. We brought forward to you about the election commission coming to us, asking us to change some dates. In the discussion, a board member asked that we do an option C. We did create that calendar, but as in the planning of that, as you know, the next year's calendar has been posted and out on the web for, it was approved in 20. So that calendar's been out there for some time, and there's some concern among us that people have already planned based on the current spring break that's already out there. We would like to suggest that we take this option C to the calendar committee along with the 22-23 and 23-24 school calendar, and get more input before we vote to change that calendar. But certainly we can and that would be our proposal.
And like I said, if this was discussed at the work session, I was not privy to that discussion, but I'm assuming it's not just as simple as closing school on the day of the elections.
They don't want kids in school, so we tried to adjust some of our we adjusted our PD day so that we did adjust one day in the calendar, but mostly to moving our professional development days to where only teachers would be in the buildings on those days.
That's kind of what I was trying to ask, I guess. All right, so where do we go? Like I said, I'm kind of flying blind on this one. Ms. Irvin.
So I talked a lot about the calendar. I'm sure I'm the board member you're referencing about the option C. Right now, it seems like my remembrance is that you guys preferred option B. Is that correct?
Yes.
Mr. Fulbright, just some of the things we talked about was just making where spring break was more streamlined, I guess is the way to put it, where if you notice the end of March, there's a week off, and then they're off the following Friday for Good Friday. So we talked about things of that nature. We also talked about the end of May, rolling over to a following week and some of the deterrents there. But it sounds like we need to make a decision on one of these. So I guess I'll make a motion to propose option B if that's what they seem to, and then we can discuss it further with planning committees later, so.
Okay, we have a motion for option B. Second on that? Not seeing a second, so okay, we have a second. I guess I'm a little confused then. Why are we looking at changing things around spring break? Go ahead.
That's just what we talked about. What the need arose, the reason for the change was because of needing to be closed for polling. Some of our buildings would be used as polling centers during the election, so that shifted everything a day. And then we just, in discussing the calendar, some things maybe that we didn't notice before came up. So
I'm just saying that polling is November.
No, it really just extended it to where it looks like we're coming back a day after, like May 22nd. It's going to be a day we're coming back where I think before maybe we were not. So is that correct, Mr. Gaines?
On the proposal, the proposal to adjust is proposing to adjust the upcoming calendar, which you have already approved. So that's what we were dealing with to make those adjustments. So we put some options there, adjusting the days, adjusting the professional development days. We had two options there. Right now, for the calendar that's approved, the spring break remains the same. There was a discussion about adjusting the calendar, the spring break calendar for the upcoming year.
Okay. I guess I'm a little perplexed on how we got this complicated on moving students out of school for one day. Mr. Lindsay.
No, it got complicated because of me, so I was the one that brought it up.
Hey, own it if you're going to do it. That's the way to do it.
But
go ahead.
But if you look at March, to get you up to speed, if you look at March, the week of March 13th, we have a PD day on the 13th, so we have a 4-day school week. The next week we go to school 5 days. The next week we're off for spring break, and then the next week we have another 4 days school week because of Good Friday. So we had a discussion that spring break coincides with Mule Day, when really the only days that Mule Day would affect schools are on Thursday and Friday. So I threw out the idea, why not let's take the 30th and 31st off, and then we can have the whole next week, which is the week of Good Friday. That would give an extended break, one extended break, rather than having 3 partial weeks out of 4. And I'm kinda concerned that we didn't at least be able to view that, since we talked about that at length, during our work session, and it didn't get posted up here, but I don't, it's hard for me to believe that if we made that change here in January of 2022, that it affects people's plans in March and April of 2023. They're a lot better planners than I am, if that's the case. But I just brought that up because it would help streamline that spring break. It would give parents, kids more of an opportunity if they had other plans, so I'm owning it. I'm the one that made it confusing, but I was hoping to see option C that we could flesh out tonight, but.
And Mr. Chairman, and to your point, Mr. Lees, only, because the 22-23 calendar was approved on 12/1/2020, and it's been posted, since it's been posted for essentially a year, is why we had some concern that calendar has already been out there with that spring break as it was, and making an adjustment to that calendar, which it is. We're still theoretically within a year or so. But that's why we suggested that we take it to the calendar committee and get more input before we bring it back to you for approval.
Well, and I'm of a similar mindset. We've had that out there forever. That's why moving, one day is what my preference was. Ms. Parker.
I'll just say I'm a little frustrated, like Mr. Lindsay, that we had a very lengthy discussion about the calendar, and not to even see what we discussed and kind of proposed as a board, just in group discussion, to not even see that reflected, and the thought being we're just going to take that back to the calendar committee, or you can take what we want. Like that's a little frustrating to me, that we don't even have what we discussed visible to us when we sat here for probably about 20-30 minutes talking through all those things. And I understand that this calendar's been out here for a while, but we're changing this calendar. We may be only changing 2 days on the calendar, but it affects other days, which means we're not just changing 2 days. We're not just changing a day in August and a day in November. We're changing the end days, which if people are planning vacations for that's going to impact them. So to make a change to spring break does not seem like that big a deal, and to not see it reflected based off of the discussion that we had is just, again, really makes you question why you come to work sessions if it's not going to be reflected.
Okay. Ms. Irvin.
I guess this is a little late, but hearing Mr. Lindsay and Ms. Parker, I agree. We did talk about it. So I feel like I just want to rescind my motion.
Okay, we have a rescinding of the second. Okay. That motion's been rescinded, and the second was rescinded as well. Mr. Moore.
Is it possible to push this to the work session?
Yeah, let's do it.
That'd be my preference.
Okay, thank you. This goes back to the work session. All right, number 3, adding Cox Middle School to the current contract with Elevate. It's my understanding this was not at the work session. This was sent to me and asked to be an emergency approval by the executive committee. And as a part of the executive committee, I said I don't understand how we can have an emergency on things that we probably saw coming well in advance. So that's why it's on here tonight. Mr. Gaines, I'll turn it over to you.
We did have the work session with you, and we did not, at that time, Cox did have some teacher in the pipeline that requested to hire. After that teacher declined to come to the school, which created the need on the 17th for us to try to get this Elevate contract done to provide that. And the reason why we tried to do that in an emergency, because it was over the threshold, and we checked with Mr. Woolver and finance, and that is what they suggested. So that's why we brought it to you. But it was after the work session that happened. There was a teacher in the pipeline for Cox Middle School to be hired. The teacher did not accept the position. It created a need for us to try to fill this, and we were simply trying to get the ball moving to be able to sign that contract so that Elevate could go ahead and contract those teachers to be able to work this so they could be the teachers would be ready to start, and we can try to move forward with hiring the classroom coordinator.
Did
at
I
the same
see
time.
some information that it was more than just one teacher, or am I imagining something different?
Well, the Elevate contract is by sessions, so that's what, when we told her how many sessions we needed, if you look on that contract, we need 3 sciences and 2 social studies, I think, and that's what the addition was for the 9 weeks.
Okay, so it makes up for one teacher, but with all those sessions?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? Ms. Parker?
Like you, Mr. Fulbright, it looks to me like it's more than just one teacher. And even from what you said, Mr. Gaines, it looks like it's a total of 8 periods that are being requested.
It's going to be one period over. It'd be like a teacher teaching. A teacher can teach 6 periods in a day, and then we would have that teacher teaching the 2 extra periods. Is what would happen.
So we were going to have a teacher that was certified to teach science and social studies.
You know, that teacher would teach those 3 sciences and then teach that period 1 out. So the way they can schedule science certified teachers to teach the science classes. So a science teacher may teach 3 6th grades and a 7th grade.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the way that Cox would work it out to where we would have actually another teacher from another grade covering that class, but they would be certified for it. But with Elevate, we were just trying to cover those periods is what we were trying to do.
Okay. Again, it still's not totally making sense to me, the science and the social studies overlap. Just my knowledge of middle school and how many periods they can have. But I will say, if we approve this, when will it start? Do we have classroom coordinators lined up?
Well, as of right now, you haven't approved that. So as soon as you approve that, we will alert her to get those folks started. So it will go as soon as we can. I didn't give her the go-ahead because I didn't have the go-ahead to say. I alerted her that possibility that we're going to try to post this position and go ahead and get this classroom coordinator. And but as soon as we can get going, as soon as you approve it tonight, I'll let the vendor know, and she will contact. We said we hoped that it would be approved, but I couldn't definitively say yes, I approve this without your approval.
Oh, I understand that
Yes.
part, but I'm saying part of Elevate is us having our ducks in a row to have somebody in
Yes.
place from a classroom coordinator position, and we talked about that the last time.
Yeah.
That Elevate really does us no good if we don't have a classroom coordinator. I'll be honest with you, I was here for the last 2 weeks for break. I would have been happy to come in for an emergency section to make sure that kids had a teacher tomorrow in these classes. And the fact that y'all didn't call an emergency sessions is really concerning to me, because if you're waiting on me to make a decision, you didn't ask me to make a decision on Elevate for Cox or to increase the pay for classroom coordinators, because I think I brought that up at the last work session, that we needed to have that stuff in place before January, before classes started tomorrow. My question that I asked at the last work session that I'm still waiting on an answer for is, do we have classroom coordinators for Elevate? At this point, we know Central and Culleoka, we discussed, it was on consent. So do we have classroom coordinators? I asked for that information to be provided to the board on January 1st. I didn't get an email about it.
The positions are still posted. We haven't had a request to hire for the classroom coordinator at Culleoka. I mean, as soon as you guys approved it, we posted those positions. At Culleoka, it hasn't been posted yet. They do have a 120-day contract person who can serve as the classroom coordinator in that class, so they can cover that right now. But no, to answer your question, they do not have that classroom coordinator at Culleoka Unit School, nor do they have any at Cox, because we haven't got the approval yet. At Central, Central worked through some scheduling. They have, rescheduled some kids to where all their, current math students, except for one class, have in-person teachers. So we do have that covered. We don't have the music and the, physical science covered, but we did make some adjustments with the math to where now we have, we're able to cover that with the teachers that we have. So they will all have in-person students for this semester, and then we'll just need one classroom coordinator at Central in math, and we'll still, as we asked you, for the physicals, for the, music, we'll still have to cover that.
Mr. Moore.
Am I to understand what you just said, that we don't have a single coordinator?
We already had one at Central. You gave us the approval to post the position 2 weeks ago.
I don't mean positions, I mean people.
We have one at Central. We have one at Central.
Okay.
You gave us permission to post the one at Culleoka. We posted it. We hadn't filled that applicant yet.
Okay.
We did have a 120-day contract teacher that was already working, that was filling that position. So that person can work in that role as a classroom coordinator and continue to help students. So we have that covered. The Cox position came after the board meeting, so we have not posted that position yet.
Are we posting those specific to the school, or are we doing, because it was my assumption when we first started this, we gave kind of a blanket number of positions. Is it not handled that way? Again, maybe that's my ignorance on that.
No, we're posting them. The schools are posting them, and as soon as they get them, we're posting. Actually, Ms. Gerard posted it for them, so we're actually posting those as soon as we had the approval. We posted those positions.
Is there a reason why that's not done as just I'm thinking through this as just a position for a classroom coordinator for the district rather than specifically for each school? Because it was my understanding that we had approved a lump sum of those.
Mm-hmm.
In my understanding, for the district, and we first talked about this, we had 2 schools included, correct?
No, we only had
Or was it
Central.
only Central?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I think maybe some of Ms. Parker's confusion too, because again, that was my understanding, that I'm kind of confused on why we're having to be specific with the school if we had already approved a certain number. And that's, I think, what she was asking too. So we've had how many posted openings for the classroom coordinators?
As you said.
As of today?
Yeah. As you said, we've had those positions posted at Central.
How many?
They needed 3.
Okay,
They posted
and we had
3.
only filled one of them,
They
correct?
filled one.
Okay.
The one was working, she had to resign. They had another one filled.
Well, I guess
yes.
that speaks to my concern on this too, I think, along with Ms. Parker, is we've already had open positions that are not being filled for that. So even if we were to approve this tonight and start doing this, my concern is that although this program may in theory work well if we have the classroom coordinators, we don't have classroom coordinators, and they don't seem to be applying for these positions, which is why I'm wondering, is this really a solution, or do we need to be moving our direction somewhere else and trying to figure out another solution? I mean, that's what I'm thinking by what I'm hearing. That's the reason I'm asking specifically how many classroom coordinators we have.
Mr. Hooper.
Yeah, so that's pretty much where my mind went. The way this looks to me, we don't have the teachers to fill classrooms, so we bought a program to put in there, but we still need people in that classroom, which is the problem we had in the first place. So it sounds like we're just gonna elevate $34,000 and hope we find somebody to stand in the room and teach those kids. The same thing we'd be doing minus this $34,000 and all the other money we've sent to Elevate so far. 3 posted at Central, we have 1. I know there's other things that have happened, they've dropped out, or maybe we have teachers cover the other spot. But we're looking at that same thing. If it was easy to fill, it would have been filled when we first posted the 3 jobs, but it's not. And then we're gonna ask to do this at another school and open another position that probably is not gonna get filled. And that's the truth of it. And when you look at it through that lens, this looks like wasting money. But we have to do something, but this looks like wasting money.
Again, the key that Elevate provides, they do provide those certified teachers, and that's what we're trying to get, is have that certified content teacher for that class. I do agree with you, not having a person in there, it's not having a consistent person makes a difference, as you've heard at Central, where if we have inconsistencies in the classroom coordinator, it causes difficulty with the not having a person in there so the students stay on. I think from what I've seen and from what as we've looked at the classes, the Elevate instruction is engaging. They do keep the kids on. That that part of it of having that person there to make sure that everything's ready is a key to it, and that's been a spot for us trying to work through the best solution for that. We tried to, when originally came to you, we came to you with a proposal for EAs because that was a temporary position, and we thought we could, if we kept it for the rest of the year, we could move those folks somewhere else, and they would be like another EA. We did realize that we needed to bump the salary, and because it was a temporary position, we asked you to raise the salary some. There was some discussion as to what that salary should be. I think we settled that at somewhere around $15 an hour. That's what was communicated out, that we tried to communicate out, and it's like you said. People, we tried to communicate that out as Mr. Edie at that time, and Ms. Love. That's the salary amount, hourly amount that we communicated out to them to as they started interviewing people. They just haven't had success with it.
That's okay. Thank you, Mr. Fulbright. I have a question. I mean, I'm at the point that we need solutions, so pointing the finger here and there really doesn't do any good, but I feel like ideas that come to my mind that might be just bogus. Can somebody remind me why we cannot, I know we have something in place about, for lack of a better term, like double employment, but is there a way we could, I'm thinking we've got bus drivers that drop kids off, and then some of them like to have that day off, but would there be what is the reason why we cannot see if maybe some of the bus drivers or people that are, maybe they would be willing to fill some of these shifts? That's one thought. Another thought is, and I'm sure there's reasoning, but I know we've upped the pay, and we say we put it out there. Some people read the Herald, some don't. I saw something in writing about we were going to pay increase, but are we sending flyers home to parents? Because again, I know at Central it's a little harder, but maybe at a middle school like Cots, maybe you've got parents that drop their kids off possibly and have the day free that maybe we should be very proactive in sending things out. And then lastly, what about temporary staffing solutions? I know that's a very less than ideal because we want them to be our employees, but have we considered any of those three things, and is there a reason why we can't consider some of those above?
I know Mr. Rod has reached out to different staffing agencies to try to consider what they do and but she's not here, so I don't want to speak for her, but I know she has reached out to employment agencies. She's reached out to other districts to see the same issue, and like we said before, this issue is not just a Murray County issue. It's statewide and nationwide. So everybody's trying to work through coming through those solutions. What's the best solution for us to fill these staffing shortages?
And I appreciate that, but like we've heard, we're at the point we've got to have an urgency with it. We've got to do whatever it takes to get teachers for these kids. So
I know that $15 an hour is thrown around. I believe even as high as $18 an hour is thrown around, and these are solutions that you don't have to wait to come to us. We established that if you want to change the hourly rate, if it's in the budget, you do it. So if $15 an hour wasn't working, did we think maybe we should up that or give autonomy to principals to have some discretion with that? Or, if I'm sitting here and I've got a candidate in front of me and I say $15 an hour and they're like, nope, I'm out, then, what about 17? I don't know how to solve this solution or solve this problem, but, we weren't getting it with $10 an hour. We're not getting it with $15 an hour. So let's try $18 an hour, or let's try, what's in our budget is what we need to go with. And if we need to change that, we need to change that. But it's a temporary job, so, you know, the whole mindset of, well, I mean, these EAs may go apply for it. An EA has a permanent, full-time position, so they're not looking for a smaller part-time job. So if we have to offer more money to attract a shorter-term employment, that is, I mean, we need to be looking at that. Expanding Elevate is not going to be my first go-to when we can't do it right the first time. So why would we double down on it? You know, I mean, I guess that's our only option at this point. Have we not looked at other? I mean, there's got to be other options. There's got to be other options, because this one isn't. We haven't done it well for the first semester. I don't have confidence that we're going to do it well the second semester if we're not finding people to fill these positions. So, I mean, I'm kind of flustered at the fact that we are sitting here making a cake, and we want a chocolate cake, but we keep getting a vanilla cake, and we're not changing the recipe. And I want to change the recipe and figure out what we need to do different to make that, to get the desired outcome.
And so I just wanted to address, keep in mind, we did ask you to fund those classroom coordinators for the whole year. So that would be having someone working for the rest of the semester. So that's, you know, and that has some bearing on why we were trying to start this salary schedule at an EA's salary, because that was in the range that was already in the budget. So I just wanted to make sure we understood that we want those classroom coordinators for the whole year.
I don't know where to start, but I understand Ms. Parker's frustration. She specifically asked at the last work session, could we get a report of where we stand with classroom coordinators, what positions we had open, what we had filled, and we didn't get it. And it's, you know, I don't understand that. That shouldn't be that difficult to get. But so then at the last work session, we talked about it, and we left with, and I know I talk a lot, so maybe I'm the only one that listens to myself, but I thought we left it with bring us back a salary schedule for EAs and classroom coordinators, because Mr. Edie came and spoke, and we determined that he thought that the reason he was having trouble getting these positions filled was money. So then we had a discussion about how EAs and classroom coordinators, how those two could coincide with each other, and I threw something out that wasn't very easy to understand, but then we clarified later in the meeting, just bring us back what a new salary schedule would look like for both of those, and here tonight we don't have anything. So we beat this thing up at our work session, but then we get to the point where we can actually vote and do something, and we don't have anything to vote on, and it's really, really concerning to me. But I share most everyone's sentiments up here that we're doing the same thing over and over, and we're expecting a different result. And it's just, you know, this may be a position where it doesn't matter what we pay. You know, that we may not can pay enough to get people. And if that's the case, then we got to do something different. Whatever, I don't know what different is. I can throw ideas out, but to continue to do the same thing over and over, it isn't working. And as Mr. Hooper said, we can keep throwing money at it, but we still haven't got someone in the classroom yet. And Mr. Gaines, you said something earlier that I hope I don't know if I understood it or not, but you said that through some scheduling changes at Columbia Central, you guys have been able to put a physical person in front of all math students for this semester. So my question is, why didn't we do that last semester? Is there some reason why that didn't work last semester?
It probably depends on the students. Probably had other courses, and they were able, because we changed. As you know, some courses are semester long, so that allows us to do some changes at the end of this semester that allows us to do that. So that's what we did. We were able to make some changes in the schedule.
Well, I mean, we just had a concerned parent come before us and brought her concerns that her kid she showed us had a half a page of an algebra lesson all semester long. So if we're able to make it work now, there had to be some way we could have made it work for that kid and for those kids, and it's numerous kids. It's just everybody's frustrated. I know you guys are frustrated, but we can't keep doing the same thing over and over and over. We're not getting anywhere right now.
So I'm looking at the website right now, our website. I've looked at classified, I've looked at licensed. I don't see coordinators postings anywhere. I don't see for Culleoka, I see a special education assistant for Culleoka. That's the only thing. So I don't even see postings. So I mean, I don't know how we're if I'm looking for a job and I'm looking for a job in education and I go, or I'm looking for just whatever, and I go over here to this website, they're not posted.
I will.
Did they expire?
I will have to get. I'll have to get with Ms.
I
Gerard
understand.
and let her bring that to you.
What I'm saying is, from my perspective, looking at this, I can't apply for a position that I don't know exists. I can't apply for this. So I know that we have had applications because Mr. Edie came up and he told us he had applications, but he still has needs, and I don't see how I can. If I was a person looking in, I can't apply for those needs because it's not out here for us to apply. What other avenues are we going besides just putting it on our website? Are we advertising it anywhere?
We advertise it through the state job site. We advertise all our positions through that. So we're doing all the recruiting measures. We're doing a job fair, like you say, in the coming months. That's not going to help us now, but we're doing those same advertising that everybody else does. We're reaching out to employment agencies, local employment agencies, trying to fill positions, and so we're letting them know our positions just like everyone else. We're trying to fill those positions.
And then, so when I go to these other places that I found this job for Murray County, and I click on that link, it's sending them to this page where that job doesn't exist.
Sure. Again,
that's my
yes.
concern. Like we may have lost people because I guess
could
they
have been
filled it. You know,
it could be that they're in the cycle, and I wasn't able to see it right now. Okay.
Furthermore, I do want to know. There's one more question that our speaker asked. What are we going to do going forward to make sure that these students aren't going to fall behind? Do we have any plans? Because obviously they've had a semester of lackluster education. So what are we going to do going forward to ensure that those students, now that's not necessarily geared at you, that's going to be a principal's decision. So I want to make sure that gets followed up on and that there is something in place to support those students and make sure that they do get the skills that they need.
Mr. Sims. So I have a couple questions, I guess. From what, I don't remember her name, the lady that spoke about her child, do you know if that is true and accurate, if whenever whomever subs, teachers, whoever was in the classroom that was Elevate and our technology having trouble working, has that been a problem?
When that was brought up, I don't know if Mr. Schuler is, but from what we know, there were two incidences that came up, and they were addressed immediately. One was a kid had pulled the cable out, and they fixed that, and the other, I think, was some login issues. There were two instances that were reported to technology, and they took care of them immediately.
Okay.
Would there be any that weren't reported?
There could be some. Yeah, there could. I mean, I don't know, but the ones that were the ones that were officially in the hopper, they took care of immediately.
Okay, thank you. That was
Mr. Fulbright, they're checking those rooms every morning. Tech is. They're going in every day. I think Jake's one of the ones doing that at Central. He's verifying that all that equipment works every day. When there have been technology issues in the class, it's generally been from a lack of supervision where cords were unplugged or devices were turned off.
All right. Next question. Have we reached out to our subbing agency to see if we can get some type of permanent subs in these classrooms? Or I guess the principals maybe could reach out to the subs who are coming to be a more permanent sub, because I think now our subs are not limited on the amount that they can work since it's through a secondary agency.
I'm kind of speaking on behalf of Jennifer on this one, but before ESS, the sub company, came on board, we had around 40 to 50 subs that would actually sub classes. That number has gone up a little bit, but not a whole lot yet. I think we're around the 70 mark, and our fill rates for teachers that are out, we're not at 100%. So right now, we don't have enough subs to even sub for all the teachers that are out, so we're still paying teacher, sub-teacher per the MOE, just in case basically teachers can't find a sub, but they have to be out anyways, and other teachers pick up the slack and earn sub pay for that. And so it'd be hard-pressed to do that when we can't cover the absences now.
Well,
so, but it's an idea.
I appreciate that, but we have an absence now in those classrooms who don't have anyone. So
right.
that seems to me to be a possible solution. Secondly, has anyone from Central Office been to those schools and spent a day, 2 days, or 2 hours, any amount of time with the principals, with counselors, whoever does scheduling? Have y'all been in the schools to help with this problem? I mean, are we just leaving it to the principal, hoping Mr. Edie and Ms. Love figure it out?
No, we've tried to help at every school. We've tried to be present with, not that we've tried to be certainly more present at Central in those areas where they do have some staffing shortages. But we tried to be present at every school to help out where needed, to be in classes, to do those things as needed when, especially when they have staffing emergencies. I mean, we just leave what we're doing and go out to schools to help.
Thank you.
Again, just thinking outside the box. I'm sure you guys have done this, but any of our retired teachers, I mean, can we offer them some kind of something to done that too, and no interest?
Go ahead. And to add to Mr. Sims to that, we were very specific on our high vacancy schools to send the coordinators out to work with those principals on the scheduling for the first semester and now the second semester as well, and as well as other people from the instruction department. So we have been out there quite a bit, especially when we look at, the Central and the EACOX specifically.
Okay, so where do we go? Mr. Moore.
Okay, a specific question. So I'm going to go back to what we've got here. Refresh my memory on this. The request to increase starting pay for classroom candidates, I think there was no documentation included in this. What is that pay proposed to be?
That pay was $15 an hour is what we decided. I think that's what we discussed it would be. There was some discussion about that range being more, like Mr. Howell said. I think the discussion was that was not maybe it wasn't a board decision, but we were trying to make sure that we were within had that freedom to say we could set that salary at $15 an hour. But I think what we heard from the board was that y'all could. It's not a decision for y'all to approve unless it had a budget impact. I think that's what came out of that.
I'm trying to knock some things off the list here, if you guys don't mind. So if that's not something if we've agreed that, then we can just throw that off the table, and we're not even talking about that one. Is that correct? Correct. Does everyone agree on? Okay. Then I'm going to move back on to the adding Cox Middle School. If we were to add this to the contract, remind me again, because I know we talked about this back in, I guess, October when we first started this. This is we don't pay anything unless we actually use it, correct? So hypothetically, let's just say we bring this program, we approve this, it starts tomorrow. We don't have classroom coordinators for the next 3 weeks. We magically find all the teaching positions we need. We put those teachers in place. We never spend $1 on this portion of the contract with Elevate. Is that correct?
Once they get the teachers ready to go, if we have somebody to cover that class, they are going to charge us for that. But if we hire a teacher, they will not charge us. If we hire a teacher and get them in, I think what we recommended in the case of in some of these classes that we would do it for 9 weeks because we needed with the teachers that we were hiring non-content area teachers.
Sorry, Mr. Yates. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get down to just the bare bones here, so not the hypotheticals on that. But I just want to make sure I'm clear on what you're saying. We would or would not pay them. So even if we don't have a classroom coordinator, are we paying Elevate because they're prepared to teach the class?
If we have a person in that class and the class goes on, now there may not be that class coordinator. In the case of Central, sometimes it was the principal, sometimes it was the permanent sub.
We had a warm body.
We had a person in there that was trained how to set up the system, so the class was able to go, and so we did pay for that contract.
So if I could throw something out to my fellow board members, I don't like this. I don't think we're getting results out of this. However, I am of the mind that I'm okay to approve this with the understanding that I think that central office and staff needs to bring us at the next work sessions some new ideas, some other ways to address this. That would be where I would like to go with this, to quickly move away from this, because in my opinion, I don't think we're going to fill the positions to be able to utilize it anyway. However, I don't want to sit here and not do anything. On the off chance that we get some positions posted to the website, which aren't there currently, if we can get those posted and we fill those positions within the next few days, we could maybe utilize this some. I don't know. My goal here is to try to get these kids some teachers. I mean, in some format. But I don't think this is the solution. So what I'm saying is I would like us to have this come back to the next work session where we discuss other solutions. Because I just don't think this is panning out. It's just not working. And I think the evidence has shown us over the last semester. We tried this. I don't mind kind of having it in our pocket if it happens if we, again, magically get people in there. But I think Mr. Hooper said it correctly. The problem is just finding people, period. Whether they're classroom coordinators, EAs, or full, licensed teachers. So in that regard, I would make a motion to approve this extension for Elevate for Cox Middle School. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, I have a motion from Mr. Moore, second from Ms. Irvin. Ms. Parker, your light's on.
Can you clarify, Mr. Gaines? You said that we don't pay on this contract, or we pay on the contract once they have a teacher ready to go for us. Is that correct?
Well, once we get everything ready to go, they have their teacher and they're ready to go, and we get the equipment, everything's ready to go. Once they start to teach, we start to pay. And so, it's incumbent upon us to try to get that classroom coordinator there. And what we've done at Central is we tried to train other people and try to have someone there to be in the class to cover it. And that's like we've all agreed, that's been some consistency issues. But we do have to pay out that contract. So, and that's somewhat why we're trying to only do it by 9 weeks. One, again, to go back to help with transition, because the folks that we're not hiring content area teachers, we're hiring degree people, and we're trying to pair them with a content person from Elevate to transition, so we'd have time to transition both the kids and the students, so we can get to a point where we can cut off the Elevate contract and continue on with the teacher.
Okay, so if we approve this, then we are on the hook for $34,000. Period. Because they're going to line up a teacher and then.
Well, if we magically hire a teacher tomorrow, no, they would cut off some of those service hours. We were able to get a teacher in between the time that we do the setup, then they would bill us for, I mean, I guess they would bill us for
They
some
bill
time.
us for something.
Some time, but not
I mean,
all of
they're
it.
gonna,
Yeah.
like you said, they're getting somebody that's a
That is right.
certified teacher.
Right.
And so they're not, I mean, they may be sitting on their hands for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks waiting
Yes.
on us to get a classroom coordinator and
That's
get the
right.
equipment set up.
Mhm.
But then at that point, they're gonna bill us $34,000 regardless of
Yeah.
what those kids learn
Yeah.
or don't learn. Is that correct?
Yeah, if we get a teacher in place, they work with us to try to.
We didn't get a teacher in place.
Right.
That was not in my hypothetical that I just
Right,
asked
but if
you
we don't
to
get a teacher in place, yes, they're gonna still work with us, because, you know, suppose we sign that contract to say we would have the classroom coordinator and we would work through it. So, we're not trying to sign an agreement for a year. We're trying to, you know, go at a 9 weeks at a time. And that's why we brought it to you for only a 9 weeks.
Okay, so here's my issue with Elevate. I feel like I'm being asked to choose between like a rock and another rock. Like they're both like, I'm just like right in between them. I don't know which way to turn. Because the way I look at this is we have a program that didn't work last time. But I think part of the reason why it's not working, I mean, we heard firsthand it didn't work for Miss Wolfen's child. Because of that, we still haven't learned from it, and that's what's really bothering me. Because before you bring me this, I'd like to know that you have classroom coordinators ready to go. Because this thing should start tomorrow at Cox Middle School, if you're bringing it to me tonight. But you're not ready to, and you won't be ready to. And based off of the previous history that we've had with classroom coordinators, it's probably not going to start in a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And then when it does start, then we may have somebody that may be there, may not be there, may pull a plug, may not pull a plug. I mean, I don't know what I'm voting on at this point when it comes to Elevate. And it's not that I have a problem with Elevate. I just feel like we have a problem from a planning standpoint. I'm having a real hard time because I don't want these kids sitting in a classroom with just a sub. I would rather them have a certified teacher, but I think they're probably going to be sitting in front of a sub for the next probably 2, 3, 4 weeks at least because we didn't plan. So, and I mean, she asked, I think Mr. Howell had mentioned, what are we going to do for these kids? And I think the last time you said summer school. That is a horrible, I mean, if that's what they have to do to get the content for algebra, God bless them. But if I am a parent, I am ticked off at you right now. Like, at our entire school system. Not you personally, but I am ticked off at our entire school system for not educating these kids. And then telling me I got to bring my kid for summer school because we didn't get the job done. And what I'm saying is that for the last 2 weeks, we hadn't had a meeting. We haven't had a meeting. And we're going to go, kids are going to go to social studies or science at Cox. And if I don't vote for this, they're not going to have a teacher in a month from now either, more likely than not. And our response is we're doing the same things that everybody else is doing. And that right there to me is the problem. How we're trying to hire. We're doing the same things. I mean, I don't want to shortchange these kids, but I also don't think this is the right solution. And I think we could wait until the next work session, or we could have an emergency meeting, because they're still not going to have classroom coordinators. Especially paying it out at $15 an hour when we heard from Mr. Edie that did not work. And the solution that was just told to us where central office said, well, we can do it within in-house. They're still saying they want to set it at $15 an hour when Mr. Edie said firsthand that did not get the job done. I mean, I am so frustrated for these kids. I am so frustrated for these parents. If we cannot staff, we don't need central office. I mean, we don't. I'm sorry. If we cannot staff schools, maybe everybody that's working at central office needs to take a classroom. Because to me, that's more important than making sure that some budget amendments get to Doug. I don't know what the solution is, but the solutions that have been brought to us have not worked so far. I don't know that I can support this, but if it doesn't pass, I hope that somebody has some solution for these kids at Cox. Because this is embarrassing. It's disappointing.
Ms. Irvin.
I'm going to support it just because I feel like we're desperate, but something I want to bring to mind, Mr. Howell, had a revelation for me is looking at the school board, the job board, and out of these positions that we're trying to fill with Elevate at Central and at Culleoka, the only position I even see on our licensed is an 8th grade, I believe it says science teacher at EA Cots. So I'm going to request, if we've got Elevate in place, and maybe there's a reason we can't, but I feel like even if we pay the money for Elevate, I think those teaching positions need to stay on until we get them hired, if that's indefinitely, because I think what I'm hearing as a board is if it's in the middle of March and somebody wants to come teach algebra at Central, then we're gonna adjust, even if that means we lose money on Elevate or what may. But I think we need to be very aware of what our job board looks like and make sure that, because that's what it's saying to me. If we can't even get that done, it really makes me wonder, I mean, are we really looking for teachers or are we not? It really, I try to give you guys the benefit, and I don't want to be the negative one, but it really does make you wonder what we're doing or not doing. And another thing, not to mention, but I do know that there are other, and I've even asked, you know, I've got family that works at different school central offices, and they are having to pull shifts in schools. And, you know, and I'm like, how do you do your job? And I do understand that, but we've got to get serious about it for sure.
Did we have Mr. Moore made the motion, Ms. Irvin made the second. I don't even know what to say at this point. I know Mr. Perriman talks a lot about when the bus drivers are short, they get people out of the bus garage to go drive the buses. From my days being child care director, teacher calls in sick, I'm in the classroom. I mean, obviously that's not a permanent solution. Elevate's not a permanent solution. Obviously nothing that we're doing is working right now. So, I guess, without any other suggestions, we're ready to vote on this before us. I don't even know how I'm going to vote. All right, that does pass. This is not a conversation that ends tonight, by any means. I think I said it at the last board meeting, I'll say it again. This solution is one step above an empty classroom. And right now, we're not even at that point. So we've got a lot of work that we need to pull together and do. Moving on. Operations.
Good evening. The only item we have for you tonight is the 5-year plan. If you look at that item, you will see that there are 3 attachments tonight. The first attachment is the memo that we brought to you at the work session. Then based off of your conversation with us at the work session concerning or surrounding the central office and the possibility of looking into that based on some of the concerns that were brought up with the elevator and different things, the second attachment is a memo that's an addendum for me that's just asking that we add that as the 7th item to the 5-year plan. And then the third attachment would be that same 5-year plan that was presented to you with a central office added as a 7th item. The budget number from there was talked to. We went through architects. We went through several different people trying to roughly, in a short amount of time, kind of carve out how much space we would need. That budget, we think, is more than doable. And in fact, as we approach capital time, I could probably give you a more accurate number that I think would be lower than that. And again, I brought all 3 of those items to you. The first one is what we talked about as a group. So if you're good with that, if you chose to
add a central office to that based off of the conversation that we have. I did bring that as well to you.
Mr. Lindsay.
Motion to accept the, most updated with the central office added into that.
Second by Mr. Moore. Motion was made by Mr. Lindsay. Mr. Moore.
Mr. Kramer, I appreciate you bringing that to us. And I just want to say for this, I know this is some people may look at these numbers and they're large numbers, but I think this is an important thing that we started a couple of years ago to do, and I think it's important that we continue to update this on a regular basis. I'm happy to see this board doing a very good job, in my opinion, of keeping the public and our funding body aware of what we consider to be our needs as we move ahead. I think the important thing, and I think they highlighted content that we added tonight, number 7 on central office. The takeaway I have there is that we're being very responsive to needs as we see opportunities, and as we see, for example, the McDowell property is an option that has been looked at there as a possibility. Not saying that's where it's going, but that is something we've looked at, and I think that's speaks well that staff is continuing to bring us options to look at so that we can make informed decisions on this area. And I'm happy to see us keep this updated and to push this out to our funding body as well. And as we get new information, please continue to keep bringing it to us so we can keep updating it as needed, especially when you tell me we may be able to lower the numbers. I always like hearing that one.
Thank you. Seeing no other lights, I believe we're ready to vote. That passes unanimously. Anything that we need to discuss or do under vaccine policy update? I'm assuming everything went back to normal.
No, not quite.
Okay.
It's just, that's only the placeholder. Federal government mandated through OSHA that we implement a vaccine policy. That was stayed by the Fifth Circuit, then the stay was lifted by the Sixth Circuit. It's currently at the Supreme Court. Ms. Gerard and I are in close contact with TSBA. They have kicked out the deadline for noncompliance. We're waiting on a TSBA model policy to come down if needed. So you're going to see this placeholder for a while until we figure out where that's going to go.
Who's actually affected by the vaccine policy? Teachers or students?
Teachers.
Okay.
Teachers.
Right.
You as an employer.
Oh, it's an employee
Yes.
employee issue. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Then moving on, you're listed under the next one too. Appeal.
How about that? Back to back. So your policy 6.300 gives folks dealing with an out-of-school suspension the option to appeal to you as a board. The way that goes, principal makes the decision. It goes to the disciplinary hearing authority. If the parent or student are not happy with the DHA's decision, they have an appeal to the superintendent of schools. And then finally, if they're still not happy, they have an ability to appeal to you guys. You have a confidential attachment on your agenda, but just to pull from your policy 6.300, it says that once that appeal has been initiated, it says the Board of Education, based on a review of the record, may grant or deny a request for a board hearing and may affirm or overturn the decision of the disciplinary hearing authority with or without a hearing of the board. So that's where we are. You guys have a request for that hearing. You have the right, after a review of the record, to do as you wish. You can affirm the decision, overturn the decision, or set it for a hearing. If you set it for a hearing, we'll do that as a closed-door meeting.
How do we make that decision? Do we take a vote public?
Any board member can make a motion to affirm, overturn, or schedule a hearing.
Okay, and we do that at this time, right now?
Correct. Yeah, we don't get these very often, but it is your policy and it is the parent's option to ask you to look into this matter further. And if you choose to do that, then you certainly are able. You have what the DHA had at the time they made their decision. So if you were to conduct a hearing, it would be basically on that record, but you could allow testimony from the parent or from the principal or really any other party that you deem appropriate.
Okay. Mr. Moore, your lights on.
If I could just, this is getting to a legal question. Based on the policy and the wording of may, may we also not take any action at all?
Correct. You,
Which would be an affirmation of the standing.
that's exactly right. Status quo would remain.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, if there's no motion, then that'll be treated, just as a denial of the request.
Okay. Any, Mr. Lindsey?
Mr. Wilbur, it appears from one of the attachments that, maybe the parent has, acquired the services of an attorney. Does this take this to another level? I mean, has there been any lawsuits threatened or any of that to your knowledge?
No, there have not. The attorney, requested the appeal on behalf of the student. I think the attorney did not appear in front of DHA, but was subsequently retained. So I've been dealing with the attorney on the request for the superintendent's review and now your review. Your policy says that your decision is final, so this would be the last of the administrative appeals. Presumably, some kind of petition for cert could be filed in Chancery Court, but this would be the last of the administrative levels.
And from a legal standpoint, from what you've seen, has staff followed all policies and the system in good standing as far as you can tell?
Yes, I mean, it looks like your procedures have been followed up to this point. This is just the routine, the last line of that due process for the student.
Okay. Ms. Irvin?
I wish and this is my fault for being incredibly busy the last little bit, but I wish I had read through this more thoroughly. I don't like to get involved with these things. I like to leave them to staff when I can. But something we had talked about when we were talking about, zero tolerance, you here or not. But do we, and I guess that's where it just depends if we take the case or not. But what I don't want to do, without having read, again, I can't make a determination on it because I haven't read through it all. But what I don't want to do is ignore someone's pleas if they've been being harassed and then they react to that. Because I don't know. I think we've got a lot of that going on. I think we've got a lot of kids, good kids, sometimes having to take a lot because I don't know. I don't know where I stand on it. I'm just rambling, but it's not something I just want to. Has everybody else read through all this? And okay, then I'll let others comment or let it be.
Okay. Seeing no more lights, do I have any? Seeing no motion, I think it doesn't go beyond this point. Any other items that we need to know about for the good of the board? Ms. Parker.
Sorry. In light of the number of people that I know that have corona, have we updated our policy as far as like quarantine? Have we distributed that out to teachers, staff, students, parents, if anything has changed on that? I'm just curious what it is. I've had people that have asked me if they've tested positive.
Quarantine numbers have changed from the CDC a couple times since Christmas, it seems like.
Right. I'm just curious if we have a new standard.
We've been watching for the Tennessee Department of Health. We just got that today, and we're going to be passing it out. But it's the new standard. That's what we have to follow, not CDC.
Okay.
I would just say that in light of the numbers that we have in this county, I think it'd probably behoove us to communicate that sooner rather than later.
Yeah, there's been a lot going on. Any other, Ms. Irvin?
Just one quick question. I was looking through the employee report. Are the resignations for this time of year, are they pretty typical of what normally would be mid-year? Do you know? Okay, that's fine.
Okay. You just shoot her an email tomorrow, tonight, whenever. Mr. Lindsey?
Along those lines, I was looking at it as well. It looked like we had 12 resignations, if I counted correctly earlier today, for actual classroom teachers. We just discussed for a long time about not being able to fill positions. Are those positions, have they already been filled? Are we now without those 12 positions? A lot of them were elementary, positions. Where do we, kinda goes back to Ms. Parker asked about an update of vacant positions, and it would be helpful to kinda see where we are, but where do we stand on those positions?
So sometimes it depends on when we get the resignation. If we get the resignation and we're able to post it, sometimes we try to post those for 5 days, or we try to post those for, and some of those postings may, and just in the case of the Elevate, positions, they were already posted. We
No,
just
I
reposted them, and they just now expired, so.
I'm talking about the there's 12 specific positions that it looked like the resignation was the 17th of December, somewhere around in there. I just, are those 12 positions, are they vacant today, or are they filled?
I would, yeah, we would need to let Mr. Gerard give you an update on those as to where they are.
I will say the elementary positions are a little bit easier. We still are getting applications there. The ones that are hard to fill are specifically these high school or subject specific ones that we see, such as the algebras. But generally elementary, we do have candidates.
Thank you. Any other items? Seeing none, we will, I have a motion from Mr. Moore to adjourn, second from everybody else. Meeting adjourned.